together, get through whatever. For words are better when the lights go down. You and me together, there's nothing better. It's now whatever. Make it through somehow. Make it through somehow.
Hey, bestie.
What's up, sis?
You're tuned into Big Sis Besties Podcast.
Back again with another episode of BSB and its hostesses with the mostesses. On today's episode, we'll be discussing untraditional family dynamics, having separated or divorced parents, relationships with our step parents, whether we want to get married or not, have kids or not, and some special guests for today's topics.
Ooh, so excited for this episode.
Yes, me
Having our
too.
guests on.
Our first
All right,
besties and
so
our first guesties, honey.
bars. So we've talked about family dynamics and like our family dynamics in the past, but we've talked about kind of like the traditional family and like a matriarchal family. So I think talking about an untraditional family dynamic of like having separated parents just makes sense into the segue. So do you want to share what your household was like first, or do you want me to go
Yeah,
ahead?
sure. Now I can start it off today.
Go for it.
Now we kind of briefly in episode 2 of The Eldest Daughter touched on, my separation and how it happened, but I'm just gonna go ahead and give a little recap. My parents were like on and off my whole life. It was pretty much me and my mom wherever we lived, but sometimes, my dad would come and live with us in some of the places that we stayed. But the final time that they separated and like for good was a few months after my little brother was born. That was in like 2002. They didn't even get divorced until like 2014 or 2015 because she wanted to get remarried. But that's kind of like the separation story. It was really weird, the transition, because again, I had a new little brother, I had a new house without my dad. It was just really weird because he had lived with me for like a consecutive period up until then. So for him to be gone and like we just had a little baby and where are you going? Hello, what are you doing? You're leaving us. That's like how I felt. So
Mhm.
I do feel like the man of the house when he left was my mother's now husband because he had his own room. I had my own room. Mom had her own room with the baby. So I do feel like I gravitated towards him, even though we were close. Um,
Mhm.
because, we shared a room when I was a kid, which is kind
Mhm.
of weird if you think about it now. Good thing
Right.
he wasn't a
He was your
creep.
dad's best friend, right? And like, so
Right,
he was
like
always a family friend.
right. They've been friends since third grade. So he was there the day I was born. He came to live with us and he kind of went house to house with us after 9. So we always had like a close relationship, but it just to me for my dad to leave and then for him to kind of like so that kind of started a weird thing, like a weird relationship, because it's like, wait, you're like my dad's friend now, you're like my mom's boyfriend, like what's going on? Weird
Mhm.
for me.
Right.
But we'll get into the relationship aspect after, but that's like the story of my parents separating, the story of kind of like the transition. So for me, it was just a weird space being new to being a sibling. Um, and I don't want anybody to come on here and judge me and my family. Like, they were doing what they thought was right at the time.
Mhm.
No children were harmed in the making of this story. So I'm really blessed on that part. Like he does love me like his own child, but there are
Yeah.
things that him and I have gone through, which I will get into when we get into like the relationship part. But that's pretty much it. A real weird
Yeah.
transition. I probably still am not healed from it. I don't think I am, but
Yeah.
that's my
Well,
story.
Well, I think that's not like, I mean, your story is definitely unique in the way that it unfolded, but also it's like very common in the fact that, a lot of parents separate and continue
Yeah.
to raise children. And, my parents separated when I was, I believe, 3, 4. So I was very young. But some of my earliest memories were them, them fighting, slamming doors, us moving out, stuff like that. Like, I was talking to my mom kind of, in research for this episode, and I can really recall things, and she was like, "You were probably, like, 3 or probably 2 when that happened." But it's funny how stuff like that really does stick with you.
Hmm.
My biological father was not in the picture a lot throughout my life. I haven't talked to him in many, many years. But there was a time period when I was younger when, I would go over his house and or stay the weekends and stuff like that for a short period of time. But we have a very, in we have a very dispersed relationship. Like, if I met him in the street now today, I wouldn't know what to say to him. And it's not because I haven't tried to have a relationship with my dad. It's just that I just don't think that he's capable of having that relationship. I don't know if it's like shame or regret or just purely incompetence that he's just not able to, but he's just never truly been, the man of my household. I am very fortunate though that I did grow up with a father figure. My mom met my stepdad, or I say stepdad, but they were never technically married. My mom was actually never technically married ever. So
Ever.
she was never married to my father. They just separated. I mean, they were like kids when they met. And then, when they split up, they were, just broken up. And then when she met Jeremy, I think I was maybe 5, maybe 6. So I was so young, and he was there from the beginning, in a relationship with her, took up that role. He always thought of me as a daughter. He really was the man, the dad that stepped up, or
Right.
whatever that saying is. So he really was that father figure in my life, and I'm very fortunate that he was there. He was a great man for our family at the time. And I was 8 when Corey was born, 8, almost 9. So he was in my life for quite a few years as my father figure uh, when Corey was born. So, in my opinion, when I talk about dad, when I talk about, when I talk to my brother and I say, "Have you called dad?" Whatever, like, that's what I'm talking about is Jeremy. And we have a good relationship now. We're older. He lives in another area of North Carolina, so I don't see him as much, but he has always maintained a great relationship with me. He calls me, he checks up on me, even if we don't talk a ton, or even if, or super frequently, he always tries to stay kind of updated with what's going on in my life. And, he was a good source of discipline, a good source of, respect. He, was the role of our father growing up. Now, him and my mom did separate too when I was 16 and Corey was about 8. And I think that definitely changed the dynamic in my house. For the first time in a long time, my mom was a single mom again. And not only that, we've mentioned my mom was a young mom. So by the time I was 16, my mom was in her early 30s, and she was now single. She was really trying to find herself again and live, the young adult life that she didn't necessarily get to do in her 20s because, she was trying to have a traditional family, like a dual parent household, and raise, some kids. And, I think that they did the best that they could. And I think that, you get a little older and you see your parents as people, and sometimes people can be good parents and bad partners. And that partnership was not healthy for quite some time, and it just wasn't meant to last. But I am fortunate that I have a great relationship with Jeremy, even though I don't have any relationship with my biological father. But I think, in my opinion, that relationship, my mom's relationships in general, like not seeing like a traditional marriage, a traditional, parent relationship or whatever, that's really kind of sculpted my feelings towards marriage. Like, I always just thought people could just be together. And like, I just always I've always been a hopeless romantic. I always believe that like you could find your person and make it work. And like, I never really saw a lot of that growing up. My grandma has been married 3 times. So I have never seen two people truly like get married, choose each other every day, have a long lasting marriage. But I believe in the concept. I don't personally think. Sorry, hold on one second. This pooch is food. I don't want it to be in the background. Okay. I don't like personally have any resentment towards the concept of marriage, but I know when I was a little younger, I was always like, I don't really believe in marriage. I don't really want to get married because I just felt like if two people loved each other, they could work it out, you know? And I was just like, oh, it's just a piece of paper. Now I'm a little older, I'm in a long-term relationship and I get it. Like, I get why people want to get married. It's like, like, hey, I want there to be some repercussions if you decide you want to throw in the towel. And like, I want you to put on paper that you're going to stick it out with me because that's what I'm here to do for you. So, I mean, I think the concept of marriage is uh, changing from a even traditional to a more untraditional idea nowadays in general as well, because I know a lot of people that kind of feel that way.
Well, I agree. I have had both spectrums. Like I've had the grandmother who has been married multiple times, 3 to 4 times. I have had these two set of grandparents who were married 45 years, but
Mhm.
they argued and they yelled at each other, and it was like the way that they loved one another. But to me, it's like I don't want to yell at my partner to show love. So it was a weird dynamic there, but there was love nonetheless. Now, my mom and dad were together for from 91 to 98. They got married in 98, but then were separated in 2002 and stayed married until 2000, like 14 or 15. So
Mm,
they were married for some time, but not in the same household, not practicing marriage.
right.
Now,
Kind of untraditional timeline there.
right. So my relationship with my dad, I feel like if he wasn't in the home, he wasn't really active and like that parent. When he lived in the home, of course, he really didn't have the choice. He was there, he went to whatever he had to go to, but when he left, it started to like grow a distance because he had a new girlfriend. I'm 15, 16. At this
Hmm.
point, I'm now moving away from Carl. We're not really the close bunk mates that we were in 2000, but he is an addict, and around 16 I started noticing things, like I think I noticed it earlier than that, but I was like naive. I didn't bring it up to my mom. I didn't know, let her know that like I found said things. But the older I got, the more I realized like, okay, you're something's up. Like he would go to college,
Hmm.
you know, and because of his, if I'm not mistaken, because of like his charges or whatever the case may be, we moved to New York. He comes and follows us there. Then he goes back to college. We moved to North Carolina. He follows us back here. And it's like he came and he really never left at that point.
Was he in
And
a
I
relationship with your mom that whole time? Like, were they like together or were they kind of on rocky terms or what?
from my knowledge, from New York, because there was only one bedroom and he slept in the bedroom with her. So that was in 2013 or 14. No, I'm sorry, 2003 or 4. And then we moved to North Carolina in 2005. So that whole time, yes, I believe that they are like boyfriend and girlfriend at this point. So I'm still transitioning into you just were my bunkmate. Now you're my mom's boyfriend. Okay. You're my dad's friend. You're supposed to be uncle. Now you're like my mom's boyfriend.
Yeah,
And
trying to
I
be
started,
stepdad.
right, like I started to realize that my mom was like putting up this front of acting happy, but she really like wasn't. There were
Mm,
times where, like, when he was in the thick of his addiction, like, he would go missing for days. He would overdraw the bank account. Like, I'm talking about taking the last dollar. Like, there would be times where we would have to go look for him. Like, at one point, someone came to the door and like heard my sister playing in the house, and nobody answered, so she started going to daycare. So my relationship with him is like, you ruined my family, like,
mm,
even though my dad left, you came in with your problems and your addiction, and my dad was an addict too, but I just feel like he disrupted what could have been, in my opinion,
right.
like, my mom
Like
could have
your dad
healed
left
and
at
grown.
least.
Right.
Mhm.
So my relationship now, like, we're cordial, we're cool, but sometimes I just can't get down with the way that he speaks to people. I can't get down with the way that he treats people. Like, he
Mm,
means well, but he just doesn't communicate well, so it's hard. He's a very smart man. But even to the point where I almost didn't go to their wedding, I was so over her continuously taking him back, but then continuously crying about the things that he, was lacking or doing or whatever. But I couldn't
yeah.
take that away from her. I couldn't take that moment away from us. So, I was her maid of honor. They got married in 2015. So I think she finally did the paperwork for my dad because she couldn't legally get married unless she did
Mhm.
so, you
Right.
know because she was
Yeah.
paying for all of it by herself. He wasn't going in, or my father wasn't splitting it. So I think she just prolonged it until, okay, now you're getting married. You can't prolong it anymore.
Right.
So my marriage outlook is very similar to yours. It's like, I want someone to choose me every day.
Mhm.
I don't want someone to feel like they have to choose me because of a legality issue, like, it has to
Right.
be an everyday thing that you're committed to me. Why does North Carolina or the government have to be involved in that? Like, love
Mhm.
is love. You could be my life partner and we can go from there.
Right. Yeah, I think unfortunately, like when you grow up with kind of these untraditional views of like relationships and you see your parents in toxic relationships or abusive relationships, or like I can't imagine like how hard that was with your mom, like loving someone who's struggling with addiction. And I mean, we've seen him grow and change and like,
Of course.
become sober and like a, a
Well,
much better partner.
there are a lot of great memories that I have with him. Like, he's the reason I had my first two cell phones. Like, he's the reason I learned how to drive. He's the reason that I had a lot of
Mhm.
experiences.
Your
But
siblings.
sometimes, say it again.
I said he's the reason why you have your siblings.
He's the reason why I have my younger siblings. That's correct. But it's just like at the expense of my family, like, those are nice memories, but it's like there are so many worse memories than those few things. So it's hard for me to balance that. But he has grown. I mean, he's an old man now, like, now he's in a different stage of his life where he's going through like a lot of back issues and surgeries. And I believe in karma. Maybe this is just his bad karma, whatever have you. I wish him nothing but, you know good health and a longevity, and him and my mom to be happy. But I can't forget. I just
Right.
can't. I
I don't
can't.
think you should, I don't think you should forget, but I think that there's always room to look back and, give grace to your parents because, like, my father's an alcoholic, my stepdad's an alcoholic, every actually man in my family is an alcoholic. So I grew up with a lot of, kind of addiction problems in my family as well. Gambling's a big addiction in my family, that's a problem. And I think people in relationships, especially that have kids, always try to stick it out for the kids and whatever. And unfortunately, when you love someone and you try to stick it out with them, even though they are hurting themselves, they're hurting you, they're just not stepping up the way a partner should in that relationship. When there's kids involved, the only people that are truly suffering are the children. You know what I mean?
I
Whatever
agree.
decisions you guys choose to make in your relationships is one thing, but I mean, you can see when your parents are not happy or when they're struggling or whatever. And also, you get older, you get some perspective, and you can see why they try to stick it out. But at
Right.
the end of the day, some people just
It's
aren't meant to
like
be, and
and
some
it
people do
really
work it
does
out.
more harm when you stick it out to me because I was a product of, oh, I stayed with him this long because I wanted my family to work. Well,
Mhm.
it almost is like I wish we could have had that conversation because I would have been like, let's bounce, and everything just would have been different.
Because now as an adult, you have resentment towards him
Yeah.
for that, you know what I mean? And I don't really have any resentment towards, my stepdad or my dad or whatever for having their problems, um, or my mom for choosing to be in these kind of relationships that she was unhappy in or unable to make it work just for, the sake of love or whatever. But I think the priority becomes when you have a family instead of trying to fit into this traditional family dynamic, like, like, oh, like he's the father of my children, I love him, I want to make it work, we're married, whatever. It's like at the end of the day, it's really more about, is this a healthy household? Is this a relationship I want my children to see and to grow up? Because I mean, look at us now. Like we're grown and we're like, I don't even know if you really like. I don't even know if you need to get married because
But we're
it
not
just seems like
alone.
a mess.
We are not alone. It's not just us, it's everyone.
Um,
So I did a little research, and on Forbes.com they had a survey from PEW Research Center. They surveyed 6,034 adults, and it was conducted in 2022. 30% of the US adults surveyed to be single, which was defined as not married, not living with a partner, and not in a committed romantic relationship. 21%, 30 to 49. That's a huge
thir-
number.
30 to 49.
30 to 49 years old. 21% of that, of 21% of the 57% of singles. Because in my mind, I do 100% of the 57%, 21% of that, of those people are our age group.
Hmm.
That's a big, huge chunk.
Yeah.
So,
I think people are waiting to be much older now before they actually do get married. I think the traditional family unit generations ago was, to get married in like your 20s or your younger 20s, have children, make a house, and then people stayed together a long time because they either didn't believe in divorce for religious reasons or, for the sake of the family and the kids or whatever. So they stayed together in spite of not being happy or not being the healthiest relationship because marriage, right?
right.
But now I think people, are our age and they're like, I think I'm gonna wait before I get into that long commitment. People are waiting older to become mothers. People are
Yep.
waiting older to get married. And I think that's because with time comes wisdom and experience and also, a little sense and some stability in your life. That goes a long way. I wish that my parents were a little older just because they probably would have had a little more understanding and experience in life because my mom was actively figuring it out as she was raising me, in her relationship, in her own life, and that would have been nice.
Well, my thing is, I always envisioned myself, because this is the American way. You get married, then you have a baby.
Mhm.
Was single for such a long time that the thought of marriage hadn't really crossed my mind except when I was with my high school sweetheart. And after that, it like really never came up for discussion again because once we separated, I was pretty much consecutively single. So
Mhm.
if
And
I'm
you were
not gonna get
healing.
married, right, and I was healing, so it's like, okay, if you're not gonna get married, where does the kid come from? So in my head, I was either not going to have a child or have one with a best friend, a close friend, like a platonic child.
Partner.
I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know, but a platonic partner to have a
Platonic, yeah.
child with.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
now that I'm in my relationship, we don't have to get married, but it's like we are committed to each other for however long we serve each other, which we're wanting to be until our physical time is done here. So
Right.
now it's like,
And you can
we're
both.
getting ready for the family and we want to do that and we want kids, but we're not trying to rush because of my age or, we just want to make sure everything's flowing and working. And when the time is time, it's time.
Yeah. I think unfortunately, I was just talking to somebody about this the other day, how society puts so much pressure on women to have children because it's almost like, your purpose or your value or whatever. But, I think that has shifted. There's many women nowadays that choose not to have kids or don't want to have kids or are trying to get away from that ideal that, your purpose in life is to procreate. I don't think that there's anything wrong with wanting to have kids and knowing that, like, you've always wanted to be a mother. Great, that's a beautiful
Right.
thing. But some people don't, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think also biologically as women, we do have like this kind of clock that ticks for us. And, as you get a little older, you feel literally in your body like, I'm supposed to be doing this by now or
Mhm.
whatever. Like your body sends you signals. Every month, if you don't got a baby, your body gets mad at you,
Right,
starts
right.
bleeding. And I think, for me personally, I always said that like I didn't really want to get married because I just thought, why? Why not just have someone and choose to be with them and be happy and content with someone standing beside you? And then also I felt kind of the same way about kids. Like I never really pictured myself as being a mother. It's not something like I'm like different than you in that way where it's like don't I'm not excited to like jump into that journey yet, but if it happened to me, I'd be like, cool. I always felt like I wanted to wait later in my life because my mom did it so young and her
Right.
mom and whatever. I wanted to make sure that I was older and wiser and more patient and more financially stable. I know they always say that there's never a right time, but I think it's not 16.
Right.
For me personally, that's personally my journey. No, no shade. But like I always said, like if it was meant to be that I was a mom, I would really like to be a little older. I would like to take my time. And then if I'm too old to biologically have children on my own, then I would be perfectly happy adopting because I feel like I have plenty of love in my heart to give if I
You
feel like I'm
do.
at a phase in my life when I want to give it to a child and nurture a child. There's plenty of children out there that need love and need nurturing. So that's always an option as well. And I think it's a great option if I decide it at that time. But I don't feel like there's anything missing from my life at this moment, especially in the way of like a child or, a marriage or whatever. I'm very content with my partnership now. I think that if one day I decided to have kids and it happened, like that'd be great. But also if I didn't have kids, that'd be great too, because you are a whole complete person and your life is valuable on its own. And you don't need to do anything or create anyone to be complete.
Right. Well, my partner and I have had that discussion. Like, he wants to be a dad. He's always wanted to be a dad, which is understandable. But I am okay with not having a child. If I cannot, what is your view on that? And he said, if it's meant to be, it will be. He believes
Mhm,
in God and he believes in everything will happen for a reason. So if it doesn't happen, we will go about our lives traveling and adopt. Like you said, adoption is always an option. I have a godchild that he
mhm.
is very interactive in her life and involved. So there are other ways to be a mother and be that person that can guide someone. So if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But we're optimistic about it. We're hoping that it'll happen right in the time it's meant to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I also believe in that divine timing when things are meant
Yeah.
to be, they're meant to be. And also, like, we live in a day and age too. Like, there's plenty of women who do want to be mothers who have infertility issues or have, a hard time even doing that biologically themselves. And fortunately, we live in a day and age where there's technology that can help with that, and people can have
Yeah.
kids even if they struggle biologically, or if they want to have children later, it's much more feasible for women to have pregnancies later on in their lives now as well. So like that timeline is, moving up as well. Like how we were saying, people wait a little bit to have marriages and kids. It's probably because they can, because our expectancy is also really expanded as well.
Yeah, my mother was 39 when she did IVF and had Aiden. So I know that it is possible. I don't want the complications that come with it, but that doesn't mean I'm going to rush something that is forever just to
Right.
not be geriatric. But yeah, I've seen an almost 40-year-old woman pop a baby out, C-section, and it was no problem. These celebrities are having them 50 and 60 years old. So it's really the medicine has come a long way since back in the day.
It has, and I think, that's a positive thing because it gives people more time. Honestly, I think, like, when people were having kids, like, 15, 16, 19, 20, whatever, like, people were, starting earlier because they died earlier, and also that was the societal norm. Now I think it's a beautiful thing that the societal norm has shifted because I think, honestly, it gives you a lot more, like, time and patience and ability to figure out your own lives,
Right.
because, like, we're about 30 and I'm still
I
figuring it
still don't
out.
know what's going on.
I don't know how people take care of other little
Mm.
humans because I'm just trying to take care of my own self.
Right. I can't imagine like being responsible for a human. Like, oh my goodness, it's such a scary thought.
Yeah. I think, like, that's also something that you have to really kind of search inside yourself and know before you decide to do it. Like I said, some people grow up. Like, I was personally never the little girl that grew up like dreaming of my wedding day or dreaming of being a mom and playing house and having a baby. That was not like my
Right.
truth. But there are people who have that feeling and have those, like, innate instincts, and I think that's a beautiful thing. And sometimes, like some of our friends who we'll speak to later, they, said, like, I wasn't sure I wanted to do it until it happened, and then I, just switched. There's a switch, I think, in women because they're amazing superheroes that they get biologically when they become pregnant. They're like, I'm a mother. I'm a mother. And now I know
Right.
what to do all of a sudden with my body, and my body knows how to create this life, and everything falls into place accordingly because of that.
And that's why they say a father is not a father until the baby's born, but a mother is a mother as soon as she really is pregnant. So that really is a true statement just from the experience that is that I've heard and we'll get into a little bit later. So
Mhm.
um it's a scary thing, life, marriage, kids. It's like, do we not? If we do, there's all these things. So it's like you just got to
Yeah.
kind of do it or not.
It's okay to not know.
Right.
And I think that's what's important is I feel like there's so many people sometimes that will, give you kind of outside influences like, "Oh, you should be settling down now," or "When are you gonna have kids?" Like, as soon as you get a
It's
boyfriend, it's like, "When y'all
annoying.
gonna get
Yeah.
married? When are y'all gonna have kids?" Like, "Get out of my womb. I'll figure it out when I'm ready. Thank you."
Right.
Like, please step out of my relationship and my uterus. Thank you. I'm figuring it out and let you know.
Yeah, now that my partner and I are going on 3 years in April, it's like, people are asking us, "Oh, when are you guys gonna like I still feel like we're getting to know each other. Like 3 years is not a long time to
Nothing
be
in the grand
wanting to,
scheme of life.
right. So it's like, we're not rushing it, but if it happens, then we go from there. Like you can never really be 100% prepared. You kind of just go as you learn.
Yeah, I agree. I always thought it was kinda like when I think of like people getting married young, I'm like, if you want to be with someone forever, which I totally believe in. I believe in love forever. I believe in the idea that two people can choose each other every day forever. But, and I'm not saying that I don't believe that it won't be hard. I do think it will be hard. But I think like if you have that intention, then why rush it? Why do you have to, rush into marriage? Like, why do you have to rush into having a family if you know that's something you want to do one day? Your timeline is your own, your path is your own. And if that's your journey, take it by all means. But like, forever is a long time,
A
you
long
know?
time.
Idealistically, God willing, we all will live quite a while. So, after 3 years, that's just like I just want to make sure that, we can cohabit together at that point.
Right.
Like,
And
do
see,
you always put the lid on the toothpaste? I need to know these
right.
things.
See that, and those are things. It's like we're still learning about each other. We are moving into one home in September. So, we know each other's mannerisms, but to be only with one roof and not Airbnb anymore and being in just one place and all of our stuff in one place, that's where it's really going to start showing, is like, have these past 2.5 years been what we needed to make it through this new experience, and be able to continue into starting the family and get moving into a bigger place and starting a life, even though we've already kind of started it. If you're moving in together, I feel like you've already begun
Yeah.
that, but there are so many more aspects of just living together or just communicating. It's everything together that makes it harder, because you're trying to
Mhm.
do like all this multitasking and bring it into one vision, and it's hard. It's one of the hardest things that I've had to do because I've been single for so long. So um I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's so much harder to choose to share your life with someone than to choose to be on your own. Just like it's so much harder to, you know, do the right thing as opposed to like take the easy way out and not
Do
or
it
not
all
be
right.
involved. Because when you choose to involve yourself in someone else's life and their emotions become in sync with your emotions, they have a good day or a bad day that affects your day. Their
Mhm.
heart is a part of your heart and you share lives. There's a level of vulnerability there. There's a level of trust. There's a level of work. It just takes a lot of work to care and to love for someone. Whereas, people choosing to stay single and focus on themselves and becoming, one with themselves and loving themselves first. I think that's an important process for
It
you to
is.
do, but I think as soon as you add someone else into that mix, it complicates things and it makes it harder. And it's beautiful, and I think it's worth it, but it's definitely complicated. And I say that as someone who is in a long-term relationship now, who has had a long-term relationship that ended, who, I thought that was my
Right.
life partner. I poured a lot into
Mhm.
that person. I had thought we were going to be together forever. We were together for 6 years, and we shouldn't have been together that long. It would and
No, you shouldn't have.
and, as someone who has, like, grieved that part and that effort that I put in or whatever, it did make me better. It did make me know myself more. It made me change my outlook on myself, on my life that I wanted, on the life that I want now, and the partnership and relationship that I want now. Like, your expectations change, your standards change when you know yourself and when
They
you know what
do.
you want. And I don't think that you really know what you want until you live life and
Right.
you experience things you don't want. And then you're like, okay, I might want more of this, or like, this is what, I envision for my future. And then finding someone who sees that vision and wants to create that vision with you and
Right.
manifest it with.
It's not always going to be easy, and sometimes I think like, oh, it'll just be easier this way. But in the long run, if you put in the work, it gets easier. It does.
Mhm.
It gets easier if you both try, if you're both putting in the effort. There just may be new obstacles, but each time it's like you learn something new, you learn how to maneuver, learn how to cope and move around. So I
Yeah.
definitely will say it's worth it, in my
Mhm.
opinion.
Yeah, and I think all of that is true to any relationship in your life, but of course, obviously, with your life partner, your
Right.
significant other, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your wife, husband, whatever, whoever you choose to invest in with life, to, go on the journey of sharing your life experience with someone or creating a new life, it's not a light decision, so make it wisely.
Don't rush it. Right.
That's a little advice from your big
Don't
sis
rush
bestie.
it. Right. Come on, sis. All right, so we would like to introduce our first guest, a very important woman in my life. She has taken the time to join us and share her perspective on motherhood. My jeweler, my artist, my friend, the one and only mother of my godchild, because she refers to me as baby daddy number two, Tasha.
Woo!
Woo!
Hi. Well,
Hi,
my name
thank
is
you so much for
Natasha.
joining us.
Oh,
Happy to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
well, thank you for having me. I'm honored. My name is Natasha Rankin. I am a 32-year-old single mother, and I love art. I love jewelry. I love music, and that's it for me. That's it. It's a brief
Perfect,
little
wonderful.
push together of me.
Those are all the most important things. Now, we are here today to talk about the beautiful journey of motherhood. And I would like to just ask you a few questions and get your perspective if you're ready.
I am. I'm ready. Let's
Okay,
go.
wonderful. Perfect. So, my first question is going to be, what were your thoughts on motherhood prior to pregnancy? And did you always foresee yourself being a mother?
So my thoughts prior to motherhood were very simple. I didn't really have a set like vision of what motherhood would look like for me or what I like envisioned it to be. I will say that it was a journey going into motherhood. So I just wanted to have a two-parent household and I wanted to raise my children in a family-oriented home. That's really it.
And I
And
think today, like that is, the dream. But with
mhm,
what we discussed earlier in the episode, that untraditional family dynamic, sometimes it doesn't work out that way. But I think that is all of our wishes to have a two-parent household. So I don't see anything wrong with that.
mhm. That's all I ever wanted. So outside of that, I didn't think of like a certain type of house or a certain type of upbringing. Wanted to break generational curses. That was one. Also wanted to just have less discipline within my household and letting it be more of a free spirit.
So you always saw yourself being a mother, but you just didn't know which way your family
Mhm.
would go about raising the child.
Yes, much.
I understand that. I
Pretty
understand that.
much.
Now, you were saying that your journey was interesting. I wanted to ask if you cared to share with the people your pregnancy and birth journey, because we definitely had an interesting time. So, from the time you found out that you were pregnant to the day that our girl was born, do you want to share that story with everybody?
Sure, I'm really comfortable with sharing my story. I'm okay. So I think that the beginning of it had a lot of turmoil. Like I was in a position where I was still actively drinking and having fun with my friends. I was very immature. I didn't know where life was headed. So to be told that you're having a baby was like, I've only been in this relationship is really new and just trying to navigate all of that in one was like, whoa, this is a little too fast, a little rushed, but I was willing and ready to accept the opportunity if that was something that I would be able to do. Now, my first stint with that was finding out that I was going to lose her. So that was very devastating. But I still felt weird. Months were like, weeks, months were passing. They were like, oh no, ma'am, she's still in there thriving. So I was able to keep Phoenix and that's all she wrote. I love my
So,
daughter.
so for those who do not know our journey, what do you mean when you say losing her or losing Phoenix? Break it down a
Oh,
little bit
well,
more as to so they can kind of have a visual of what you had to go through during your pregnancy journey.
well, I went to the emergency room because I've been throwing up a lot, stomach cramps and pains. And once I got to the emergency room, I was seen by a doctor who actually did not or hadn't seen pregnant women up until the point in their I mean, being a doctor, I'm like, you should see everybody, especially in the emergency room. So I was very confused by that, but that was something that they stated to me. And then they let me know that I was going to lose her as far as a miscarriage. And that was also due to the fact that I was a high risk pregnancy because at the time I was still, like I said, partying, having a good old time, and I had drugs in my system. So that was what I was expecting, like to go home, have a miscarriage, and then not have a child. But from there, they told me, no, that person just did not have the credentials to see a pregnant woman, and you are going to be able to have your daughter.
So when you finally realized that one, you didn't have a miscarriage,
Right.
two, you were actually going to be going through with giving birth and having a child, what kind of I have goosebumps because I remember that
It was a
whole
lot.
thing. It was
It
because
was
we
a lot.
kind of almost celebrated that whole thing like, okay, it's just not the time, let's go ahead and go back to the way we were rocking it out. But I know that that had to kind of go through your mind and you had to like refocus yourself. So what kind of happened when you came to that, wow, I'm still pregnant?
Well, the first thought was that, well, I'm still pregnant. You have to ground yourself. You have to recenter yourself to focus in on those new challenges in life. If there's something that's unexpected that happens, which is 9 times out of 10 how life goes, you have to put that seatbelt on, buckle up, and go for that ride. So that's where I was at. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was scared. I was nervous. I honestly, at one point, I was just like, "Am I even ready for this? Is this really gonna happen?" Um, but once I got to that place mentally, like where I was like, you know what, this is what it is. Let's start picking out the room colors. I got into the mode of I'm gonna at least be prepared as much as I can.
And
That's
they
all I
say
can
you're
say.
never really prepared, but
I
we
know.
try, we do try.
Yeah.
So you and I hadn't known each other very long at all before you got pregnant. So, you did a really quick past story. You and I met through one of my very close friends, and it was like we hit it off. It was okay. He's dating someone new. I'm like the best friend, the girl, home girl. So I had to welcome you in. Then I feel like within 6 months, I'll say within 6 months, we were like, oh my God, we're having a baby. So
Right.
not knowing
Yeah.
me and finding out that your partner at the time, the now father of your child to be, asked a stranger, someone you really don't know much, to be the godmother. How did you kind of feel about that? How did you feel about me?
Honestly, I mean, honestly, I didn't take it any type of way of like saying like, oh no, she's too new, she's this and that. Y'all have been friends for a very long time. So if I put my trust into my partner, that's what I do. So I trusted him to make that decision, to make sure that whoever we deemed the godparents would be somebody that if something happened to us, they would be able to take on that role. And since I've met you, you've held down your own home, you have your car, a job. So at the end of the day, I knew that Phoenix would be well taken care of. It didn't matter what happened. And then you showed up throughout my whole pregnancy. There was never a moment where, not the lip,
Because let them
not
know,
you.
honey. Let them know about
You
my
showed up
baby. I
throughout
don't
the
play.
whole pregnancy. The whole pregnancy, I can honestly say that support is what got me through. Me and him were not communicating as well. It was really a tough time to say the least. when you go through financial hardship and a baby's on the way, I think a lot of people shut down. A lot of people go into depression. A lot of people, you experience emotions that you didn't think you would have. You're thinking, I'm about to be extremely excited. I'm prepared. I'm going to welcome this baby in with open arms. You never know how that's going to turn out. And that's a lot of times it seems like when you have one positive thing come into your life, that's when something does hit you. And that tries your stability, that tries your resiliency to see how strong you can withstand different things. Like, what am I going to be able to take on? And with the kid, we have to take on a lot. So I'm glad that I went through those hardships, and I'm glad I had positivity as well, which is you. You were my light in my pregnancy. I can honestly say that.
Well, I love you so much. And girl, I'm not really about that talking. I'm about that action, and I'll pull up real quick. You know what I'm saying? So that
Facts.
actually brings me into my next question is what was your biggest struggle as a new mom?
My biggest struggle as a new mom. Okay.
Because this was your first one.
Ooh,
You had like
yeah,
you're the
yeah,
baby sis. So there's
yeah.
not really you have your nephew, but not someone like that lives in the home with you that you watch grow up like, oh, that's my little baby,
Mhm.
like Alyssa and I. So
Yeah.
what did you find your biggest struggle to be in this new role of literally just giving life?
I feel like my biggest struggle was battling myself to place myself in a position where I was the best mother to my child. Now from there, I had struggles throughout the journey, but that was my biggest struggle. Literally, once I saw my child, that was love at first sight. I loved my daughter. I was in labor for 12 hours. So after those 12 and seeing something being passed to you, you birthed a miniature. You birthed a miniature human. This is a human. It's real. It kicks in. It's hard to even explain how beautiful the experience is. But that was what I struggled with, really just trying to do my best, whether it was from changing the diaper as being on point with breastfeeding, pumping, showing her the world. When she was a small, like fresh out the womb, I was showing her the world. Everywhere we would go, she knew what it was, what color it was. I made a song about everything from smiling to twinkling your little toes. Everything was a song or something that we can both smile about. So I think that brought me into a better position. Like, this is something that, yes, I was kind of sad throughout that journey of like new motherhood, not really understanding my role within a relationship, not understanding my role within myself, transitioning from being almost what I think I only gained like a few pounds. I can't even say I hit like 125. So going from being 99 my whole life, gaining all this weight, my stomach, my neck was getting black, and then it was just like it dropped all off, just fell off. And now I have boobs. I've never had boobs. So just going through all of that, it's like self-consciousness. It's a journey. I can't say it was like one thing, but that was my main, like, this is something I really need to focus on. How can I be the best mother to this child?
And when I say, honey, you didn't miss a point. Like when I tell you, you would write down her feedings, you were pumping as much as you could, but when it wasn't working for you, we readjusted. Like you did so much, like literally a 360 because you were living your life, you were out here, you were single to being literally a stay-at-home mom. Up all night, up all day. Yes, of course, you had the assistance, of her father there, but as a mother, you really never stop. I'm not a birth mother,
Mhm.
but I just know that it's a never ending journey. And you and I became, I would say, quite close throughout your pregnancy and
Yeah.
throughout your postpartum because I kind of felt like I had to keep an eye on you because he was oblivious. He wasn't familiar with this and he doesn't know what to look for. So I will
Mhm.
say that you did the damn thing, and I'm so proud of you, and I'm so honored to be able to have been by your side through that. So that goes into my next question is, what do you feel changed in you? You kind of touched on it, but what do you feel changed in you when you became a parent, like your mental? And do you feel like you had a good support system as a new mom going through postpartum?
I can say what changed in me as a mother will become, being a mother at that, the change in that was the resiliency I had, my strength, and my consistency. I hadn't been that consistent a day in my life. Okay. Yeah, I get up and go to a job, but I would still add something else. Like I go to my 9 to 5, I might go out with my homegirls. It was always very spur of the
Go with the
moment. Let's
flow.
get out.
Go with the flow.
Yeah,
Yep.
go with the flow. But then I had to be like, you know what? Wow, I have to slow myself down, and be as consistent as possible to keep her alive. That's getting up, rolling up, middle of the night, like you said, every 2 hours, you're feeding, you're cooking, you're cleaning, you're maintaining a household, maintaining your mental health, maintaining sobriety, because a little glass of wine would have helped through all of that. A little
Right.
blunt, let's talk about it.
Right.
Talk about it, okay? I need a little something to get me
But
through.
like even to the
But
point where it was like, Ashley, can you literally, I just want to go take a shower. Like, can you
yeah,
literally just keep her for 10 minutes while I go bathe? Like, girl, I will, you do what you got to do. I would come try to clean the dishes, come try to do, because I know that you were adjusting to all of this new stuff, and
yes, man.
you made it look so graceful. You really did.
Thank
Especially
you,
with
and I
all the things that
tried.
were pushed at you throughout that whole time. Like, girl, you made it
Do
through.
believe that I handled it with grace. I didn't realize that I possibly was suffering from postpartum depression. That was something I really did not know I might have been experiencing. I was just going with the flow. Like, I have a child now. This is what I do. You feed them, you take care of them, and you maintain your household. That's what I was taught. That's what I've seen. So from there, I think, like I said, it was resiliency, it was consistency, and it was strength. Just making it through each day, trying to figure out the best way to execute everything we had to do. I did not have a good support system. I can say that. As far as inside of the home, no. Julian was not. My father of my child was
It's
not
okay.
okay. He was not in a good mental space. And I can honestly say that now. We've matured past that, but he was not in a good mental space. You have a lot on your plate trying to be head of household. You have a lot on your plate trying to maintain stability within the household, maintain love life, maintain what it all takes to just survive. It's a lot to
Right.
survive in this life. And a
While
lot of
still
people
going
do
through
not,
postpartum, like all
while
of
still
this,
going,
while still going through that,
yeah,
and you not really even knowing what to expect.
yeah, I didn't know. And I didn't really know how to communicate with him either. It would have been nice if you could just get this handbook slapped in your face. Here you go. This is from this stage to that stage. My mom gave me a book, but even in that, it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to really get over certain feelings, to get
Right.
me level headed when it came to the depression. But I just pushed forward. That's all I really knew what to do, was just to keep going.
And that's really all you can do. You just got to keep going, especially for this little baby that like needs you. She needs you to keep going no matter what it is you're feeling. And I feel like a lot of new moms that don't feel like they have the support feel that exact same way. So being as though you felt like you didn't have a good support system, how do you feel like co-parenting is now versus what it would have been back then?
Okay. I want to retract that though. I did have a good support system. Baby daddy number two came through all the time.
Well,
I had
you
to throw
said
it
in
out
the
there.
home, so I'm gonna
In the
stick with
home.
that because you have your mom, you have me.
I had mom,
Now I'm
yeah.
gonna go ahead and focus in the home
Focus
because
on
you
that.
specifically said that. So if you felt like you didn't have a support system in the home, then that's how you felt. So let's go ahead and just take off of that.
Okay.
So versus versus the person who you wanted to raise your child with then, the person that he was then, versus how you are co-parenting now. Do you see the difference? Do you have any advice to give for others that feel like they're struggling with their co-parenting? What are your views on what you expected co-parenting to be versus the reality of it? Because clearly our reality, it doesn't always play out to be. So go ahead and elaborate on the transition of, you know, you living together, then you being the single mom, then you having to learn how to co-parent, like your views on that.
Okay, I'll start with the living together. Living together was an experience. It was not the best, but I can say we learned a lot from one another. Once I realized that we were not able to communicate the best, I picked up and left with Phoenix's items and her items only, and I went to my family's home. From then, I was a single mom. My family helped, but my father has been sick since I was probably in elementary school and recently passed away in November of last year. So that wasn't, I didn't go there to say, boom, I can come here. My family's going to be able to do this, that. My mom is turning 70 this year. I don't expect that of her. She's raised 2 children. I didn't expect her to raise another. So that was a transition there too, having to realize I'm on my own. I need to find a daycare. I need to work. I need to figure out where to go from here and how am I going to do this? What is I mean, what, what?
Right.
What?
Right.
What is
'Cause
this?
at that point, you're not even thinking about the co-parenting.
No.
You're thinking about how I can transition us now from
Mhm.
being in one household to
Yeah.
no longer being in one household. And just because you were a single parent, people misconstrue this. So I just want to clear it up. Just because a woman or a man is a single parent doesn't necessarily mean the other parent is not involved. It just means that there is a full-time parent or
Yeah.
maybe the only parent, but it doesn't necessarily only mean the only parent. So at that point, you weren't even thinking about like how are we going to co-parent? You were just thinking about how are we going to transition into this new life of ours? How are we going to
Yeah.
be comfortable? Is that correct?
Yeah, I wasn't even co-parenting was in the back of my mind at that moment because I had her so much anyway. I wasn't really expecting him to step up any more or any less. You know what I mean? Like he played his role and he played it well. Like Julian is an excellent father. He is. I cannot doubt that, and I don't doubt it for anything in the world. He's an amazing man. I'm glad I had my kid by him. But there were times where it was just hard trying to navigate, like you said, from the separate households. And then both of us being single, both of us struggling, trying to figure that out. How are we getting Pampers this week? Okay.
Right,
That's
right,
what it came down to. How are we really getting Pampers? What's the next step?
right.
Now, going into the co-parenting, when he and I were separated initially, we were able to co-parent. We had a beautiful, beautiful co-parenting relationship. He would come and get her every weekend, so I would have that time to go out with friends, enjoy just quiet time, journal, and do whatever I needed to do because I would still work. But that was understood. Like you have her Monday through Friday, which was me, and then he had her Friday through Sunday, and we'll bring her back on Sunday, and we would start again. She would go to daycare. I'm working and keep it moving. You know, it was a good flow. It was a good
Good.
flow.
Okay. Good. A nice flow
Now,
into it. Perfect.
like yeah, it's nice and
Right.
flow, nice flow. Then I will say he entered a relationship, and that has been something recently that has not flowed well. It is very challenging to have a partner who feels as though they need to be a part of the co-parenting dynamic as much as the other parent does. So it makes it hard trying to co-parent with somebody you did not have a child with and a parent that and the person you birthed your child with. It's
Right.
very hard. It's a three-way, a lot of miscommunication, a lot of a lot of just conflict. So I'm hoping that it gets better with time.
Well, I will say that I went through something similar when my parents separated.
Okay.
My brother was little and my dad got into a new relationship. And the way I would see her try to almost raise him. It's like, first of all, I'm the
Mhm.
sister, we have a mom, like what's going on here? So I really think that what you
Yeah.
experienced happens a lot. And I will say, in my opinion, that when two parents are co-parenting, there needs to be a said respect that this is our child, and of course your opinion and what you got going on matters too, but there needs to be a respect and like almost like a barrier or boundaries that this is what we got going on and you don't step into it.
Mhm.
So how did you feel that you were able to like navigate the new relationship, and now you feel like there's a third within the co-parenting? Because I see it a lot. People move on, they get in relationships, but it kind of changes that co-parenting dynamic that you thought was flowy, and now it's like disrupted.
So I think the difference here is the relationship. Being that he chose to be with a woman who also has children,
Okay.
there is now that responsibility of I live with a new family. So you do have the new roles. Like you're not a stepfather, but you are the male figure within that household. So that's also another household that you're pretty much standing in to aid in the assistance with the children. So I can see that perspective of it being it can be very hard and challenging. But to me, in my opinion, I'm not ever going to slack all my responsibilities with my child. I'm not ever going to take away from what me and my daughter had in a relationship. So I think that's the difference now is him trying to navigate a relationship and also co-parent with me without it being any type of issues in between or miscommunications or I think that's really all it is. When you're in a relationship, you try to show that you are extremely faithful. That's with anybody. You try to show that you are 100% in. You try to show, that you love this person.
But you
So
need
in
to
doing
be able to
so,
balance
yeah,
that
you have to
with,
balance it. Yes,
co-parenting
ma'am.
and your new relationship. So
Yeah,
you felt like, in your opinion, that was the hardest thing for you to be able to get with is, look, it's got to be either be leveled
yeah,
or you need to be making sure that you're still doing what you were doing before. Like, don't be switching it up, Is that what you're
that's
meaning by
it.
that?
Yeah, just me and just staying on top of your game.
Right.
As a parent, your child sees that more than we do. Phoenix is picking up on it. My daughter's only 3 years old. She's very intelligent though, but she's only 3 and she picks up on that. Like, oh, is he not coming for me this weekend? Is there a reason? And I say that's something you need to ask your father. I don't ever want to be like, oh, he's not coming because it is. I'm not that type of woman. I'm not going to throw him under the bus or ever take her away from him
Right.
in that
Because
sense.
that would
So just
hurt her more than anything.
yeah,
Like
and that's
at
what
the
I'm
end of the
realizing.
day, it hurts her. In the long run, it's like, those, even if it's just one weekend or two weekends here and there, it's like she's on her routine. She knows, like, okay, it's the end of the week, daddy's gonna come get me, or it's
Mhm.
Sunday, I'm going to mommy's house. So I do feel like a schedule is important, but if a schedule must be broken, I do feel like communication can really go a long way. And I do feel like, from being an outsider in, a lot of the things that were not flowy could have been communicated and it could have been flowy. But like you said, with so many parties in one situation,
Mhm.
communication gets misconstrued and it's hard to keep that.
It is. It is hard to keep up with that, to try to, like, because of course, from your side, everybody has their side in that situation where it's like, well, I said this, they said that, they said that. And when you're trying to mix all of that together just to get to one baseline, oh, it's terrible. It's
It's hard,
absolutely
right?
terrible.
Right,
It's
right.
so
It's a
hard.
mess, right?
Yeah. So
So
that's where
with
I'm at.
So, with
That's it.
all of this being
Hmm.
said, let's go ahead and bring it to a conclusion. What would be your best advice for a new mom in a new situation that's co-parenting and not sure what to do? what advice would you say to the girl who you maybe were in the beginning, where you didn't think you were going to be able to make it, you didn't think you were going to be able to stick it out and stick it through? What would you tell them?
I will start by saying depression is a hell of a mental illness. So if you feel that is something that you're struggling with, like postpartum depression, definitely go back to your primary care or your OBGYN and try to inquire more about that, as opposed to just, oh, I got this, I'm fine. Because that can harm the baby in the long run too, because you're not giving them as much attention as they need. Outside of that, like I said earlier, buckle up, put that seatbelt on and buckle up. It is a ride, it's a journey. But I did find a quote and I want to read that. So,
Perfect. Please share it with us.
motherhood is a divine, sacred calling. No service compares to the service that a mother gives to her children. And that's it for me.
I am so proud of you, Tasha. I want to thank you so much for taking the time out. I would not have had another person to represent me on the show because you are my guest. So I just want to say thank you for showing your vulnerability. Thank you for sharing your story with everyone. And for one more time, I love you and thank you for allowing me to raise our baby girl together. And I look forward to all the amazing things that we will do together.
I love you too. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Of course.
I
Thank you for
appreciate
coming,
it.
Tasha. You really did, just like, because I love Ashley, I got to extension love you and know you and see the way that you handled your journey. And, just as an outside party looking in, you really did handle it with grace. And I think that you're a great mom. And Phoenix is just a little bundle of joy. She's a sassy little girl. she is
That's
so
right.
she is so like you in the most beautiful ways. And you're really killing it out here as a mother.
Thank you so much.
But
Y'all
I
don't
do
know
want
how
to
much
go
it
ahead and
means.
take real quick, go ahead and hit her up at Bliss with a sealed with a kiss, honey. Her art is right behind me. She's not just a mother, she's an
Yes.
artist, she's a jeweler. So go ahead and show my girl some support, honey.
Thank you, baby.
Firstly, I would like to say it's such a pleasure to have Tasha on. Can't think of a better guest, to bring on for you, Ashley. It was great having her and having her perspective on here. I also have a special guest that I'm very excited to introduce. My friend Priscilla here. We met, I think, in like 2015. And you have always been a light in my life. You were a catalyst for many of the friendships that I hold dear to me now, just from the La Peep girls to when we met at 131. I met you and Jordy through 131 Main. So it was, you know, a friendship that I didn't know that was going to last for almost 10 years, but I'm so glad that I did, because you really did change my life in knowing you, in the avenues and friendships that came from knowing you. So I'm so excited to have you on, Priscilla.
Yay, thank you for having me. I feel the same way about you. It's like I've been waiting for you to start a podcast and then it happened. So I was really excited
You have
and
been saying that for quite some time, and it's coming to fruition, girl. And here you
yeah,
are. Look at that, full circle. I can't think of a more supportive. Every post we
Since day
make, every
one.
we
Yep.
share. Yep, you've always been
Yep.
so enthusiastic,
Mhm.
and we really appreciate all your love and support.
We
Do you
do.
want to tell
Thank
the
you so
people a little
much.
bit about yourself?
well, my name is Priscilla Eaton. I am a mother to a little 2.5-year-old boy named Finley. I've been married for, oh my goodness, got married in 2019, so about 6 years. We've been together for 8 years, so it's been really, really fun and
Yeah. You
yeah.
and Jordy are just two peas in a pod, PB and J, my favorites. So first, I wanted to start on the concept of marriage and having kids. When you were growing up, did you grow up always kind of, dreaming of your wedding, wanting to get married? Did you picture yourself having kids when you were young?
No, not even a little bit. I actually didn't really care for kids too much growing up because I wasn't like around them a whole bunch. I mean, I had a little brother, but that was about it, and his little friends, but not like interacting with toddlers and babies all the time. So when I did encounter them, it was, it was,
Kind of foreign.
yeah, it was very foreign. I didn't know how to like talk to children or interact with them like comfortably. And now I feel extremely confident in that area because, like, being a mom makes you more like, I guess you have to, interact with your child, obviously, and you want to, but I don't know, it's different, but it's fun.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I didn't really have a lot of young kids to interact with when I was young, besides my little brother as well. But it's funny that you're also a big sis. What about getting married? Did you always envision yourself getting married when you were older?
I did not. I wanted to like live in the city and like be a fashion designer um and just frolic about and be like the fun, cool aunt with no kids. Like I genuinely never imagined like being happy in like a marriage and children and career like a regular American family. I didn't envision that for myself. I just kind of wanted to be on my own and with my friends and my colleagues and just doing my fashion design work. But then dreams change and things change, situations are different, and um, when you realize that your career that you wanted isn't really you know what you want, you like find a new dream that's having your family and just having a job to help your family survive. And
Mhm.
although I do enjoy my job, so I'm lucky in that aspect, but I also like that I don't have to commute anywhere.
Yeah, you do get the work from home dream there.
Um,
But yeah, no, I think it's interesting how, our visions and dreams do change. I think when you and Jordy got together, uh, it was like it kind of fit perfectly, it kind of made sense. When you decided, or if you did decide to have a baby, can you share what that was like? Did you plan it? Did you know that was gonna happen?
So it's super funny because we moved to Washington for about 5 years in 2018, and then we came back in. So I guess it wasn't 5 years, it was about 4 years that we lived in Washington State. And so when we moved back, I was pregnant. But when I first found out that I was pregnant, um, I was. Hold on. Can you ask the question again? I totally lost my train of thought.
Did you know? Did you plan on having a baby, or was it more of a surprise?
So okay, so it was a surprise. Um, like we were trying for about a month, and then like while we were living in Washington, and then I was like, oh, maybe I'm not prepared for this. I don't know why, but I was like, oh, maybe I'm not prepared for this. So then we stopped, but then we went on this mini vacation to like a place like an hour or two away from where we lived in Washington, just like a mini vacation. And I was having the worst anxiety about leaving our cat by himself for 2 days. It's not like me, like just sobbing the first night, like I can't stay here, we're too far away from the cat. And then I was like, this doesn't make any sense. So we cut our vacation by one night because I missed our cat. Um, and then a couple weeks later, I took a pregnancy test because my period didn't come, and I took 3 pregnancy tests. And then I was like, oh, well, of course, the moment we stopped like trying, then it happens, and I was freaking out. I was freaking out, man,
Do you
because
think
like
that's why
although
you
we
were
had,
feeling so anxious and emotional that day? Is because you were pregnant
yeah,
and you just didn't know yet?
yeah, exactly, because our cat was like our child at that point. So like I was just like, oh my God, what if he's lonely? Like what if he doesn't get enough to eat? What if we get infested by ants or something and they eat all his food? Like I don't
That's so
just
funny. I feel like
like,
that's your mother instincts really kicky in before you even realized it. But I do kind of
yes.
remember when you guys told me that you know, were pregnant, it was like, oh my gosh. And then the timing worked out well because you guys were literally on the other side of the country. And
Yes.
I'm curious as to what that was like when you guys found out you were pregnant and you were literally on the other side of the country, like away from both of your families. How was that, you know, feeling? Did you feel like you were eager to come home and miss your support system?
Yes, I was absolutely eager to get home. So like we had already planned on coming home at around this time. Um, but then it just became like more urgent because I didn't want to stay and watch because like we lived in a 800 square foot home. That's not enough room for, for us and a baby and a cat, and it was just too expensive also to live there. And when we could live here for no cost at Jordan's mom's house because we were very fortunate to have her, you know, help us out. Um, but we did buy an RV to like drive cross country back home. So that was pretty awesome.
I know that all of the Peak girls were really excited for you to come home. You know, every time we had a get together or something and you weren't there, we would still try and FaceTime you in and be part of the group of
Yes.
festivities because we certainly missed you. But not only did you come back, but you came back, pregnant and, you know, with Finley, which is so exciting. I'm curious, you said Finley's about 2.5 now, so you're like kind of into this motherhood thing. How has your experience been so far as a mom?
So awesome. Um, he's just like I was super nervous about motherhood because I was like, what if I'm too like short and impatient? Because my mom growing up, she would be like, how are you gonna have kids if you get annoyed by like little tapping that my brother would do? I'd be like yelling at him, like, please stop. But I was like, I don't know, it's different when it's your own child and you're like, you still get annoyed, but you can handle it for a longer amount of time than you could like a sibling because that's what
Mhm.
they're there for, like, to aggravate you to no end. But yeah, it's been awesome. I did go through like at the end of my pregnancy, it was kind of rough because my dad he went into the hospital like at the beginning of January, but I assumed that he would be okay because every like he had a heart attack when I was younger and then he went to the hospital, got stents, and he was fine. So I just figured that would be the same case this go around when he was in the hospital. But then um, after I had a stress test one morning on January 10th, uh, I came back home and my brother was pulled in to the driveway and there was no text, no missed call, and I knew like it was something bad had happened because he would let me know if he was on his way over otherwise. And I just got this pit in my stomach and I saw his face when he ran out the door and it was just like distraught, like just tears, and he told me that our dad had like passed away and we weren't expecting that. And I didn't visit him in the hospital because the hospital he was in was overrun with COVID patients. And he was like waiting for a bed out in the hall, and like it was just a lot. My brother like took care of him a lot. Um, yeah, I didn't visit him because I was too scared to catch COVID because I had a planned
Right.
C-section that Friday.
Yeah,
So
you were
I ended up.
far along in your pregnancy, I believe, when your father passed. Was that really tough for you? Like, that time period, expecting your dad to come home and then he doesn't, and then also you're having to go into the hospital during COVID, having just lost your dad.
Yeah, it was really really tough, but like honestly, I think I handled it better than I thought that I would because I had prenatal depression pretty bad because I wasn't like working at a like I was working a part-time job that paid $10 an hour, but it wasn't what I was used to making, and I just didn't feel good about that. Um, so then when that happened, it just kind of destroyed me because I was so excited to see my dad as a grandpa because he would just be the best grandpa. Like, it's just not fair that like on Monday of that week, my dad died, and then on Friday that week, I have to get my stomach opened up to like, you know, take out my baby, and Um, I remember when we were in the room, I had a muffin that I brought from home because all these wonderful like friends and family, pitched in for a meal train for us. But I had this muffin and Jordy was holding Finley and I dropped the muffin on the floor, but like it landed, to where I could still eat it, but I just started sobbing. Like
Hmm.
it just broke me because I just missed my dad like a lot.
Yeah.
It was just hard to not be able to grieve properly when you also have to like your body has to heal too. And
Yeah, absolutely.
you know, it's like it's just so hard. But like I could not have gotten through it without, of course, Jordan, my husband, and um obviously our baby and Pam, my mother-in-law, and all of our like, you girls, like that was a big part of my healing journey. Like when I tell you guys that I really love you and like, could not imagine life without you, I really mean it because there's a lot of women who go through postpartum and don't have, you know, the core friends that I that I do, and I just feel very lucky and fortunate to have you guys.
Yeah. Well, I'm honored to be a part of that support system, and I'm glad that you had such a great, loving support system around you in that time because I feel like, bringing a life into the world is a hard enough journey as it is on your body, on your, mental health, on your emotional health. I can't imagine going through that grieving process while doing that as well. But I think it's interesting how you mentioned prenatal depression because we were just talking, Natasha, a little bit about postnatal or, postpartum depression, and it's a really big part of a lot of women's experiences. And I think, unfortunately, when it comes to women's health and women's mental health, there's a lot of lack of resources and actual research that goes into that. But I mean, in spite of you going through all of those things, I think that handled it so well. I think that's a superpower of moms is that
Yeah.
no matter what you're going through, you still have to go through it and still manage because it's about someone else. I think that you have always been such a positive beam of light, but it doesn't take away from the fact that you've also had really hard times.
Oh
But
yeah.
I think in the beginning of your pregnancy, I mean the beginning of your motherhood, um that you handled it so well, and you still do. I think that you're you're a great mom, and Finley's such a great little boy. I'm curious if you have considered having more kids or if you're thinking about that's something you want to do in your future.
So it's like I love the way that our life is right now with just being able to like go to the store and get him, like if he wants something, like we can just get it or I can give him my undivided attention. Um, but also I think about me and Ben, my brother. He's my little brother. He's 5 years younger than me, and he also has a baby with his now wife of I think their baby is a a little over 2 years old. So she's, only a few months younger than my baby. And so it's like
Your
cool to
motherhood.
watch our children grow up together. And I think about that, like, am I robbing that up for Finley? Like, does he want it? Like, would he like a sibling? But then I'm like, okay, I need to think about what works for our family too. And when Jordy hears about a second child, I feel like his, face just gets panicked because like
He just
he
turns white like a
yeah.
ghost.
He's like, I don't know. Like, we'll see, because
Yeah.
he's 9 years older than me, and I'm 31. Yeah, I'm 30. My brain is just even more scrambled
Mom
after
brain.
having a kid. Yeah, so he
Well,
he
I
looks
think
panicked.
that my partner is an only child, and we're all siblings here, and I don't think it takes away from the experience of having siblings or not, especially because he has a cousin that's his age, which is so sweet. But I think whatever you decide to do, it I think it'll work out the way it's supposed to. Sometimes those things happen to us and for us.
Yeah.
um, I am so happy to have you on here. And I just wonder if you want to share some, advice or words of wisdom to anybody about, marriage or motherhood and give, a penny of your thoughts.
So on marriage, I would say I always like show that I'm grateful to Jordy. Like I'll always say like please and thank you, like little things like that, but also like tell him I love him throughout the day. Like tell him how, how bootylicious he is throughout the day. Or like,
Yes.
um, there's some light sexual harassment. Um, I
Some of the
guess it's
personal
not
things
harassment because he enjoys it, but like just having fun with each other, but also like showing your appreciation to them, and also like if you think something about them, like if you think they look like the most handsome man in the world, like just tell them. Like
Hmm.
that's one of the things that Jordy said he loved about me, like whenever we first got together, that he liked that I was so open with how I felt about him and what I thought about him. Because I was like, I want you to know now. Like, why wouldn't I? That's why I tell you guys when I think wonderful things about you, because I'm like, okay, like I'm thinking it. Why not just say it? Like,
Hmm.
you know, I don't know. And then on motherhood, I would say ignore like the negative unsolicited advice. And when people tell you, oh, they're gonna be in your bed all the time if you like, if you want to lay down with them or stuff. I lay down with, like, me and Jordy do every other night. We'll do switch off bath and bedtime, and we lay with him until he goes to sleep because he's not gonna be that little forever, and I don't want him to, you know, be traumatized by sleep or bath time or potty time. So it's like I'm gonna soak in all of those like little, just soak in all the little memories. And I also tried to like take note of the first year of his life, like take little notes. Um, After that, it kind of, once they become more mobile and running around more, it's like harder to sit down and type all that. But I still try to make little notes in my phone, like of little things I don't want to ever forget. So I would say just
Oh,
like make little notes of, core memories. That way you don't forget, like when your kids ask.
beautiful. Yeah, I feel like time is fast and life is short, and I think it's beautiful that you are always very present in the moment with your son and also in your marriage and saying what's on your heart and your mind. You've always been that kind of person that um, is so good about communicating your appreciation and love for people. And I think that's also a part of what makes you a great mom. And I really appreciate your time and all your love and your support and joining us here. You've been a fabulous guest. I can't wait to see how this episode turns out.
I know.
Now, I do want to say, Priscilla, we're not close, but I have literally watched you blossom through Alyssa. I have heard nothing but amazing things about you and the way that you have supported us since the beginning. I do want to extend my gratitude to you. I thank you so much for coming on, and your story was beautiful. Your family is beautiful. You're beautiful, and I love you.
Oh, I love you. I love both of you
I love you
so
too.
much. And likewise, like I hear a lot of wonderful things about you, and it's nice. Like I get excited when you show up like randomly to events.
The
I'm like, oh,
functions,
yay,
yeah.
like Ashley's
Yeah, I always try to mold merge my friend groups whenever I can because the
here.
people in my
Yes.
life are important to me, and when I get to expose you all to each other, it's always a beautiful event because there's nothing but positive vibes and positive people in my life for a reason.
That's right.
And you're part of that,
Exactly.
Priscilla. Thank you
Exactly.
so much. It was a pleasure. Thank you for all your time.
Of
And I hope
course.
you and Finley and Jordy have a great rest of your day. And I hope to see you guys so soon.
Yay, you
Thank
will. I
you.
love you guys. Thank you so much
We love
again.
you. Thank you so
Love
much.
you. Bye,
Mwah.
Angel. You want to go ahead and get
Bye.
into some hits and misses, sis?
Yeah, we can. My hit of the week is my beautiful monstera has two new leaves growing in it. I'm a plant mom, so that just I love it. It makes me happy.
Mhm.
Makes me feel
It
like I'm
looks
doing
gorgeous.
something right. Thank you. And my miss of the week is this heat, honey. This is not the heat that we had last year or when I was a little chap playing out on the streets. So
Mm-hmm.
I just stay indoors. My power bill is sky high right now because I keep it cold. So I'm just complaining about this heat, honey. It's the devil and a jalapeno cookie outside.
That's so funny. Yeah, I was just saying that the other day. I was like, this is not the same son I grew up with. It
It's not.
is
It's not. And
intense.
I lived in Florida as a kid, so it ain't the
Mm.
same.
Well, my hits and misses. So my hit is very exciting. Actually, when we had just finished recording our last episode, my brother gave me a call and he said that he had some good news. And he has been working to become a personal trainer. He's taking a certification to get, certified to teach people. He's a boxer, and his previous boxing coach is opening up a new gym and has offered him a position as a personal coach. So
Awesome.
I'm very
That's
proud of him.
awesome.
Yeah, I know. It was so sweet when he called me. I was like, I'm so happy for you. You've been working towards this in a while. And I just told him, like, I'm really proud of you. And no matter what you do, because you're passionate about it and because you love what you do and you've been trying so hard, and I know you've been struggling, making like no money working in the gym he works at now, you're gonna be okay because you love what you do and you're good at it. And he was like,
That's
okay,
awesome.
well, I'm getting a little emotional. I gotta go.
Aw. Yeah,
So I'm
to get paid to do what you love. I mean, you understand that.
I do, yeah, and
So,
and that's what I told him. I was like, I'm very fortunate that I'm passionate about what I do and I love what I
right.
do, and it's all the struggles, I would never trade, all the struggles of my career to be at this point now. And he's just at the beginning of his journey. He's going to be 22 next month, and I was 22 when I got my license. And I just think
I was
it's
22. Well, my first birthday was 22 when I met you.
oh, it's a good year,
Yep,
22.
22, baby.
But yeah, no, I'm so incredibly proud of you, Corey, and I'm always
Congratulations,
really looking
Corey.
forward to it, and I love you,
That Virgo
brother.
boy.
Yeah, that he is.
That Virgo
And
boy.
my miss, I didn't really have anything crazy going on, but I do have some car troubles going on. I hydroplaned real bad the other day when it was raining. It was scary. Like my tires are messed up right now. I think I got a leak in one of them. It's just that's my miss, girl. Is I almost died driving home, and I need to go to the shop and drop a
Girl, you
bag on my
know
car.
Faith Blanco got a little wink to her now because I hydroplaned
So mad.
360
My
twice on.
busted Betty.
Yeah, so I know
That's
about
so
that
cool.
girl.
It's your back
She's
bumper and my
still
front.
riding, honey. We almost 200,000 together, baby
Oh,
girl.
and I
She just
pay off
got a
my car
little.
next month. Yeah, I'm hyped. So,
Wait, you're getting a
that's
new car?
what I paid off next month.
Oh,
Yeah,
then we gonna be two no
like this
car
is fair
paying
that I gotta,
shouties.
I gotta spend a little money on her because
Nice.
that's my like paid off busted old Betty. I love her.
That's all right. Truck it, drag her down, down to
Riding
the
it into the
ground.
ground, baby.
That's right.
On next week's episode, we'll be discussing love languages, our current and past relationships, being in the healthiest relationships we've ever been in, heartbreak, being with a divorced man, toxic relationships, childhood relationships affecting our adult relationships. And we look forward to seeing you guys next episode. We hope you have a great rest of your week. Until next time.
All right, sis. Go like, follow, and share both our Facebook and Instagram at Big Sis Besties Podcast. Don't forget to turn on all notifications so you don't miss any tea. All links are in the description.
Please be sure to email any questions or inquiries to bigsisbestiespodcast@gmail.com. If you enjoyed the show as much as we hope you did, please give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Facebook. Tune in every other Friday for the latest episodes.
Thank you all for joining us this week on Big Sis Besties. It's been real.